Hello and welcome everybody, it's TheJWittz here with a TCG Tuesday video. I'm happy to say this is the second week straight we've actually gotten a TCG Tuesday video up. I would like to have these going for a long time. So far these videos have been nice, quick, easy ways for me to give you guys some Pokemon trading card game content, while still working on some of my bigger videos like Fact of the Days and Top 10s in the background. If it continues to go this well, it might expand to other things like Smash Bros. Saturday or Pokemon Monday, where we do Pokemon video game battles. We'll see. That might be something we re-examine in 2015, but for now, you're here for some Pokemon trading card game deck analysis. So today we've got the Metal deck. Some people call it Bronzong, whatever you call it. It is all about this card right here. It just came out from Phantom Forces, and it has the Metal Link's ability. Once during your turn, you may attach a Metal Energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. Now this ability is really good. Might remind a lot of players of a past card, the Dynamotor Electric, which really dominated a format for a really long time. It was the same thing, except it attached lightning energies instead of metals to the discard from the discard pile to your bench Pokemon. Now I know some people who are familiar with the video games, I don't make up these energy names. They're called Steel type, Metal Energy in the trading card game, same thing with Lightning Energy and Electric Pokemon. It's a slightly different name, it actually bugs me too, but while we're talking about the TCG, I'm just going to be calling it Metal from here on out. So the one big difference between Bronzong and Electric is the extra retreat cost. Electric only had 2, but otherwise both are stage 1 Pokemon, relatively easy to get out, both 90 HP. And while Bronzong might not have as many good attackers as Electric did in the past, there's still some neat things that you can do with it. In general, in the Pokemon trading card game, the ability to attach extra energy cards almost always leads to some kind of viable deck, so with Bronzong we're at least trying to make it work. Your main attacker in this deck is also from Phantom Forces, DialgaEX. So it is an EX Pokemon, it's going to give up 2 prize cards if it gets knocked out, but there is a lot of utility with it. One of them is against other EX Pokemon. You've got Chrono Wind. It's sort of expensive. A lot of these attacks, they look expensive, but they're a lot cheaper because you have the Bronzong acceleration. Chrono Wind, if it hits a Pokemon EX, it cannot attack during your opponent's next turn. Now you can get around this effect and other effects like it by retreating, but there are a few cases where your opponent might not be in a spot where they can easily retreat their Pokemon, and it'll put you in a great spot where you can just hit them, and they can't hit you back, and then you can continue moving forward. You can wall. It's not the best attack ever, but it is something. The big reason you're going to be using Dialga is Full Metal Impact. Awesome named attack. You discard 2 Metal Energy. Again, not a humongous deal because you can continue recycling energy with the Bronzong. And that 150 damage is almost perfect, but it's enough where it can be really useful. The idea is you combine Full Metal Impact with the Muscle Band to deal 20 extra damage and knock out a lot of EX Pokemon which popularly have 170 hit points. Like the Aegislash, for example. Dialga actually has 180. So there are times where you can even tech in cards like Hypnotoxic Laser to deal the extra 10, so that you could Hypnotoxic Laser, Muscle Band, Full Metal Impact for 180. That is a little messy though, so I just decided, well, let's just not run that. And if they have 180 hit points, we can find other alternative ways to 2-hit KO. But aside from that, Dialga's a pretty nice little heart to the deck. It's a great attacker, and you can get it up pretty quickly because this is a 2 colorless energy cost. You can feed that with a double colorless energy, and then all of a sudden, all you need are 2 Metal Links, and you can build this in 1 turn. And oftentimes you'll have 2 turns to set it up, which is enough for it to get its knockout on the EX Pokemon. As far as other attackers go, here's the Aegislash. I've considered running more. He's very interesting. It prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from each of your opponent's Pokemon that have special energy attached to them. If you've seen this format, special energy are everywhere. I would almost argue that they're in almost every single deck. If anything, double colorless energy is extremely popular. You've got a lot of different types of rainbow energies on that fairy deck. The fighting deck right now has strong energy. You've got new psychic decks that are trying to move in the mystery energy. There are a lot of cards that say special energy on them, and if you have just 1 attached, all of a sudden Aegislash can wall with the Mighty Shield. Aside from that, you've got Slash Blast, which does 20 more damage for each metal energy attached to it. So maybe if you need to close the game, you've got a bunch of Bronzong to play, a bunch of metals in the discard, You can do a bunch of abilities to just fuel him up for a really big attack. It's actually a lot like DialgaEX's Secret Sword. The only thing that kind of bums me out is it is base 40 instead of base 50, which Keldeo had. So, not the end of the world. You can get a lot of energy and maybe close the game with it, but otherwise it's just a wall against decks that use a ton of special energy to give them a hard time, and for that as one copy, it's pretty useful. As far as the other Pokemon, I try and use a mix, and I might even change this. I've played a couple games, and I'm not 100% sold on the Cobalion, but you've got two Pokemon that are not EXs, so they only give up one prize card. They allow you to get around things like Sigilift's Safeguard. The Cobalion has a really interesting attack with Iron Breaker. 3 energy for 80 isn't incredibly efficient, but the defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn. This is very similar to the Chrono Wind attack, where it sort of leaves your opponent in a spot where they might not be able to hit you back. Here, it doesn't matter if they're an EX or not, and again, you can retreat out of this, but if you can't, Iron Breaker can wall, it can be a real jerk to get around, and with 120 HP on a basic, it can survive a attack every once in a while, and even if it doesn't, it's only giving up one prize. Then we've also got yet another new Phantom Forces card, and that's one thing I really like about this deck, is it is all about new cards from the new set, creating a new deck, and that's Heatran. It has Steel Drop, which is pretty efficient if you've got a double on metal. It's 2 energy, and you can deal 80 if there's a stadium in play. There's a lot of playable stadium cards that have been entering this metagame, and so you'll be Steel Dropping for 80 pretty often. But otherwise, you've got Steam Blast, which deals 130. That is a magic number for knocking out Donphan. It's only 3 energy with a double, and you just have to discard 1 energy to use it. You can often replenish energy that are discarded by using other Bronzongs, so it's not unrealistic. And it knocks out Donphans, gives up 1 prize. Because it is so good at knocking out Donphan, I'm considering even going up to 2 Heatran and dropping the Cobalion or Cobalion, whatever the kids are calling it these days. Other than that, I'm experimenting with a few other new cards. Yet again, a new Phantom Forces card is Battle Compressor. You search your deck for up to 3 cards and discard them. What you want to do with Battle Compressor is simply use it to search your deck for metals, throw them into the discard pile, and then you're good to go to start attaching with Bronzong. I'm actually not 100% sold on the Battle Compressor. I've had some games go really well, where I start the game, I dump those metals in, and then I immediately use Bronzong. But in a lot of scenarios, you'll be able to get them into the discard either things like Professor Juniper, or perhaps Ultra Ball. And once you have a couple metal, I find because you have especially Dialga, who's discarding metal for his attack, you can often refill that discard pile pretty quickly. But Battle Compressor at least does save you in a tight spot where you can't use anything else. The only thing I'm not crazy about is it doesn't really push you forward in the game, doesn't help you search for anything like Ultra Ball, which is why we run 4 Ultra Ball. If I didn't run the Battle Compressor, I would probably build up on other consistency type cards. Definitely the 4th Pokemon Fan Club. Another card you don't always see, but searching basic Pokemon is important when you want to get the Bronzors in. You could go 1 more there and another energy, or you could find the Hypnotoxic Laser, things like that. Other than that, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that's exciting. From the new set, we've also got Steel Shelter. Again, like I said, the stadium game is getting bigger and bigger. Each metal Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, can't be affected by any special conditions. This is huge, especially for cards like the aforementioned Hypnotoxic Laser. If you have Steel Shelter in play, just boom, shelters you completely. And in general, I feel if you can find an excuse to run a stadium in your deck, now is a good time to do it. If only because you can replace your opponent's stadium card and maybe break up whatever strategy they're trying out. So in general, it's pretty simple. You get Bronzongs out, you attach a lot of energy, and you try and get knockouts with Dialga, your non-EX attackers if they're trying to wall you with something like Sigilift, or Aegislash if they have a whole bunch of special energy. There's a lot of stuff you can actually do in this deck. This very well might not be a perfect deck list, but I was trying to make one that was sort of well-rounded, gave you guys a taste of everything. So let's go ahead, throw this baby into a game, and see how it does. Alright, and we are underway. So starting with the flip, it's heads, and it looks like my opponent called tails. This is, like a lot of decks in this format, one where you absolutely want to go first. You want to get those basic Pokemon down so that you can evolve them turn 2, and not being able to attack turn 1 does not matter because you really don't run anything that can attack. So right away, we're facing a Pokemon that we were talking about earlier. Sigiliv with Safeguard. Prevents all damage from your opponent's Pokemon EX. I run a few Pokemon EX, this is why we have the basic attackers. Also, I realized I did not talk about the Keldeo EX's ability, but Rush In is really huge in this deck. It allows you to switch in Keldeo for free, straight from the bench, right up into the active slot. When you have a Float Stone attached, which gives you free retreat, it allows you to bring the Keldeo active, and that way you can use the Metal Links onto your Pokemon on the bench, if you specifically need to attach. Metal Links is very powerful, but it does not allow you to attach directly to the active spot. They've got to be on the bench. So right away, I'm searching through my deck. I figured might as well grab a Bronzor, and while I do the Bronzong in hand, I am going to end. My option was either discard the Juniper or discard the N and play the other supporter. I figure we'll at least play the N so that we can keep the Bronzong in the deck. We did get a replacement, so that's good. What's bad is everything else. I have the ability to rush in, which I figure I might as well do. If my opponent's doing anything with damage, I can just retreat the Keldeo, and we're fine there. Maybe I can Chrono Wind next turn, something with the Lysander, but overall we're sort of stuck. I was really hoping to find one of my basic attackers, either the Cobalion or the Heatran, but so far it's not going to happen. So, this is a deck that can play a little bit slower. I can afford to leave this Keldeo active and maybe take a hit or two. But, ooh, that's something I did not want to see. The new Bide Barricade Wobbuffet. Oh, another thing I didn't want to see. Enhanced Hammer. Great. Lots of cards from the new set. They're helping me out and helping my opponent. Okay, so we've got two new decks, really. We've got Gengar, and that's pretty much the face of Phantom Forces. And I am going up. So the idea behind Gengar is it's a lot like Donphan, hit and switch. If you guys saw last week's episode, the difference is that the Gengar EX is a basic Pokemon. You don't have to evolve it, so you can afford to fit a few more wall cards. I talked about Wobbuffet in the last episode. I decided to not fit it into my deck, but with Gengar, you can at least afford to have a little more utility. It's actually a card that really hurts me. When it's in the active spot, it stops both players' abilities for non-psychic Pokemon. My deck is built entirely around a non-psychic ability, so it's going to be my goal to get that Wobbuffet out of here and not affecting me as soon as possible. They drop the Skrelp. When it evolves into the Dragalge, it prevents your poison Pokemon from retreating. Gengar's attack poisons, so the idea is you leave your opponent stuck active so that they can't easily retreat out of it. So I am left in sort of a weird spot. I have the Keldeo active. If I am hit and Dragalge hits the field, even though I have that Float Stone, I will not be able to retreat it out of the way. I have no supporter to draw. I do have Metal Links, though. We discarded a Metal on the first turn. Ta-da! Metal Links. Combined with the double colorless energy that I drew to replace the one that was enhanced hammered, we can at least grab a prize here. It's not going to be pretty at all, but at the very least, maybe I can fish out a supporter here. I really don't like doing this often. In fact, I could have maybe kept the Keldeo active, but it is really helpful for this deck strategy. So we pull up the Skrelp. It has less than 60 HP, so Chrono Wind, why not? Grab a knockout while we can. Oh, yes, just what we needed was the third metal. And Gengar comes active. There's the Psychic Energy. Oh, and lots of gross stuff in my way. The Burbank City Gym makes Poison deal 30 in between turns instead of just 10. And even though I am resistant to Psychic, it's not looking good for me. So I am basically, I'm at least happy that the Dragalge will not rear its ugly head. But they've got a Juniper, replenishing the whole hand. I'm going to get poisoned and take extra poison damage. And here, I'm in a weird spot. I could just retreat up to Keldeo and try and soak up damage, but oh man, they just gave me a huge opening here. Now, they could have, it's a weird spot. If they bring the Wobbuffet up, they prevent me from dealing this easy rush-in, which I just did off the bench. It removes poison whenever you switch, which is humongous. Now I don't have to attach that Float Stone or even debate attaching it. I really want the Muscle Band to knock out the Gengars. I can Juniper, we've got 2 more metals in the discard pile for Metal Links. Ugh, still no basic. So we can Metal Links, bring Dialga with more energy than he ever needs. It's not great. However, the mere fact that Wobbuffet is not active right now allowed me to both rush in and attach this extra energy. Who knows? If I get in a situation, I see the Lysander right now in my hand, if I can Lysander up the Gengar, knock it out, they might not be able to retaliate, and I could deal 2 full metal impacts in a row. So Sigilyph does prevent me from getting knockouts, the Wobbuffet does not, but Wobbuffet stops my abilities. So I'm cool with this exchange, I can play it slow. My opponent ends, so we lose the Lysander option, but we draw, ooh, there's the Muscle Band. We actually got another Lysander option out of here with the Dowsing Machine. So they're putting up the Sigilyph again. Kind of surprised by this one. They have the Robo Substitute on the bench, which just denies prizes, which you guys probably saw in the Donphan video. But here, we've got some cool tricks. I had to discard a Lysander early in the game. And I've talked before about how I like getting a Lysander in the discard pile early in. If you have to, it's obviously a great late game card. But this deck, you run the 2 Versus Seekers, and you also run Dowsing Machine as your Ace Spec card, which allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand, replay one of your trainers from the discard pile. So, I can Dowsing Machine, grab Lysander back, we have the Muscle Band, and all of a sudden I can shut down their Gengar, who thrives on hitting and switching, and we can bring ourselves back into this game, maybe pull out another draw supporter. The end isn't going to be great after I have 3 prize cards, but overall I'm pretty happy with this. One of the nice things about this deck too is, even if the Dialga does fall, I have the Floatstone Free Retreat Keldeo, I can just put that up active, and then I can just attach 2 energies straight from the discard pile to whatever new attacker I can find. So I'm debating, you know, there is the 1 metal, do I metal links it on, that way I can deal 2 straight? Why not? I figure if Dialga gets knocked out, they're all going into the discard pile anyways. I have no one else to really attach them to. I'm not going to try and Secret Sword with Keldeo with a 0 water energy deck, but here, it's the situation we're sort of talking about. I can deal the 170 damage, which is perfect with the Muscle Band. Boom! You get 2 prize cards because you knock out an EX. And even if my opponent can throw up a wall here, we've got plenty of time, plenty of space to go, and we've got the Steel Shelter too. Like I was talking, Steel Shelter is awesome against cards like Hypnotoxic Laser. Also, when your opponent's deck revolves around an attack that poisons you, and an ability on your bench that keeps you locked and poisoned, just being able to have Steel Shelter in play and prevent all poison is fantastic. So while we're waiting out, sort of assessing the board, things are looking good. The one thing I really wish I had was another attacker. I was about to say how the Pokemon fan club in my hand would have been great to pull out some basics. Well, there it goes. We get the other Lysander, another really valuable card. If I can continually Lysander my opponent as much as possible, that is huge. We end up drawing a Steel Shelter. We have no draw supporter anymore. So you can sort of get in situations in the Pokemon trading card game where you whittle yourself down to 1 or 2 prize cards, get hit with an N, and then you sort of just lose. This deck can sort of deal with that in that you can at least attach energy if you're end to 1, but I would still really like a supporter. So, Metal Links, we have a second Dialga, might as well start building him up. I'm debating the Battle Compressor. It's like I said, I'm in this situation now where I have a perpetual 2 metal in the discard every turn. I can just discard them with full metal impact, and it's not really going to help me that much to just Battle Compressor and discard, what, 3 more metals? I guess if I were playing a little more wisely, you can Battle Compressor, search through your deck, and take away 3 cards that maybe wouldn't help you in this matchup. So maybe I could take away Aegislash or something, but I don't know. Even Aegislash is pretty good if my opponent needs to use the double colorless. So I don't use it for now. I figure I have 2 metal in the discard that I have to discard, and then I can Metal Links those. I only have 2 Bronzong. So I don't know how I feel about Battle Compressor. It's alright. So back to my opponent's turn. They've got Sigilyph up, and they're just in a horrible spot. Now off the prizes, I got the incredible Versus Seeker card. We've talked about this, I keep saying we talked about this in the Donphan deck. There are a lot of cards from this set that really changed up the game, but Versus Seeker might be the biggest. It is just such an excellent card. I try and fit 2 into every deck I play. It just has so much utility, and look at that. Your opponent's main attacker is an EX that they have on the bench. Normally, they feel pretty safe on the bench, but we run so many ways we can replay Lysanders, all of a sudden, that's just the game. Now, I don't think I realized this right away, even. I thought I had 3 prizes left and not 2. But you can rush in. Again, that's why rush in is so big. You have free retreat with Floatstone, and I need to attach on the bench to the Dialga that has the muscle band attached. The other one did not. But with the muscle band, we can refresh, get those 2 energy back. Versus Seeker, so another Lysander for 3 straight. Just such a powerful card. Even though it used to be a non-supporter and is a supporter now, it's still so good, and Versus Seeker makes it that much better. So we retreat, Lysander, pull up Gengar, 170, Full Metal Impact wins the game. So while this might not necessarily be the ideal game that you'd be playing, you know, your opponent's probably going to have a stronger, tighter deck. Donphan is definitely a tougher matchup for this deck than the Gengar variant, because you're getting 2 prizes instead of just 1 against Donphans. However, I figured I would at least show you guys this is the best game I could get with this deck. I just kept on getting blowouts either against me or with me. So I figured I would at least show you the one game where everything goes and really shows how this deck can work when you get a couple Bronzongs out. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it's a lot of fun, and I really like new sets that introduce an entirely new deck. And almost all the attackers in this deck and a lot of the utility cards come from the new Phantom Forces. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching TCG Tuesday. I've got another video almost ready to go. I've got another deck that I'd like to show you guys next Tuesday. But until then, you can click subscribe to follow this channel, get alerts right when new videos are coming out, and I hope you have a great week.